Hey everybody, it's Coach Sal again. It's episode 2 of the Thinking Body Revival, and I wanted to just give you a heads up about what we're going to get at today. The Thinking Body, again, is the inspiration here for the show, and there's so much in that we're going to stick to the major theme of that book. That really is, in my mind, the biggest difference from what we see today in so much of our training. And again, I don't care if you're a performance guy or a performance girl, or working out in the gym for your own or for a sport, whether it's golf, tennis, anything recreational, pickleball. Can't forget pickleball, the new craze. I can't overstate how awesome that book is and how much valuable information is in there. We're going to talk about some other things, touch on the political element that is affecting everything that we do. Some very important ways, some of which I'm sure you're aware of. I'll give you my perspective of how I think about things. Again, two sides, two different sides. I don't think there is a side. We'll get to that. And the theme, again, today, a little tease, is we've lost so much function, so much not being done upright. We're going to go old school today and show you some of those things. And I'll give you the details about my remote training program. All right, thanks a lot. And as usual, it's going to be time to flip the clock. All right, so here we go. I have a new prop today. I have this little stool, trying that instead of standing up. See how it goes. So what we're going to talk about now, well, let's start out with the political elements of health and fitness and how it affects us in our day-to-day. We might not think it does. You might think you could be immune to it. That's not how things work today, unfortunately. And there's some pretty big issues going on right now that it's about time we've had the discussion about these things. And on my podcast on the Real Voices of the Game Network, we frequently bring this kind of stuff into the discussion. And what we're going to talk about today are two things that everyone should be super concerned with. And it's interesting to me when I did some research on the subjects, how they are portrayed and skewed, if you will. You think you might be reading straight news, but when you look at it, you see certain editorial words, if that's not the right way, adjectives that kind of tip you off that there still is some kind of agenda behind what's being reported. And one of my go-to lines with all of this, from before I did videos and back in the early days when I had this little dinky blog, my feeling was agenda trumps the truth. And in that situation, the people lose. I'll give you a quick example. There was an agenda back in the 70s when the low-fat, no-fat diet was promoted that has resulted in endless problems, health problems for everyone in the country. Some 50 years plus later, we're being ruined by the effects of what went on back then. If you look into the issue of how the low-fat diet came about, and this is going to be something we talk about in depth as we move forward. It was all about agenda, nothing about people's health. The two things that you could go back and look on the trend line, two things that happened that have ruined our health since the early 70s, mid-70s, the low-fat, no-fat diet, and high fructose corn syrup. Two examples of agenda trumping the truth and being more important than really helping us. So that's my little preamble. What we're talking about today, there's two issues. One is the food labeling issue, which I really think can be summed up succinctly. If it's got more than a few ingredients and most of the ingredients you don't recognize, don't buy. And that goes for bread, cereal, which you shouldn't be eating anyway. We could talk about that in another date, at another date. Peanut butter. Think about some things that should be 2-3 item ingredients. Pasta, salad dressing. I was shocked to see that in heavy cream and in whipping cream there is a ingredient called carrageenan, which is a thickening agent. Real bad for you if you are constantly getting it in your system. It has a lot of negative effects. So my point is, all of this about the dyes and other ingredients that are in products and how they're labeled really shouldn't matter too much if you get to the point where you look at this label and you use common sense and realize there's 10 things in this that I don't know what the heck they do. And that's for everything. One of the things that's a big problem, and not to go off on a tangent, but that's sometimes what happens, is you'll see with bread, pasta especially, you're going to see folic acid in the ingredient list. And that is because most American crops are fortified with this folic acid. And despite what you've been led to believe about it being a helpful ingredient, it really isn't. And it's responsible for a lot of the intestinal issues that people have. There's good data to show that what some people think is a gluten intolerance is really an intolerance, the inability to process this folic acid. So right there, you could eliminate most of the nonsense that's going on with this debate. If you just look at an ingredient list, I heard a great phrase by somebody, a great saying by someone, if your grandmother wouldn't know what's one of the ingredients is, then you certainly shouldn't buy it and you shouldn't be eating it. Now, it might be tough. I know things like commercial salad dressing, all of those things sound great, or taste great, I should say, but when you read the label, a lot of bad stuff. Not to get into the whole seed oil thing today, but suffice to say, you can't have a salad dressing that you buy in the store that doesn't have seed oil. Buy a mayonnaise that doesn't have seed oil, which is mystifying to me because you'll have, Hellmann's has a olive oil mayonnaise or one of those two, and there's still soybean or canola oil in it, which are two of the worst things you can have. Again, be aware of that, this labeling issue. I kind of zone out because, again, if you go back to that rule, simple is best, and you could certainly construct your meals and buy your daily groceries without needing to know what that detail of this is going on with the labeling. Keep it simple. The second issue is the nutritional program that's being pushed in schools, that's been adjusted, manipulated. Any way you look at it, it's been a disaster. Articles I read tried to make it seem like what this administration is doing is worse than the other administration because there's and the concept of it going back to the state to determine what's best for their students, let their school boards, let that state determine what they want to do. In my opinion, that's the way it should go, if for no other reason that we've done it with the federal overreach for all these years, and it's turned out to be an absolute disaster. I don't care who was president, the food program, the food that's been served in schools is a disaster. I'm sure any of you who have kids know that. I've seen it in my kids. My kids are out of high school, but I see it in most of the foods that kids are given at schools. When I talk to clients of mine, kids who I work with who are school age, they talk about school. Some schools bring in fast food for lunch a couple of days a week. It's abysmal. I think we need to take that overall control because certainly the program doesn't work, so we need to try differently. I think every individual district and state certainly should have that say. And there's some pushback on that, like that's some nefarious reason behind it, or it's going to take away the control of the government. Well, I think you don't have to be one party or the other, but I think the control of the government isn't necessarily a good thing. Based on their track record, it's been a disaster. We need to have other people involved. One of the things you have to realize is the lobbying effort that goes into these news stories that you might come across, whether it's social media, whether it's traditional media, that these food lobbies have enormous amounts of money that they're spending to craft these stories. One of the things that I think is the most ludicrous issues I've heard in recent memory, which is saying quite a bit, is this concept of food stamps could be used to buy cola. You look at how much money is spent on Coke and how bad it is. And when you're talking about providing money for basic nutrition for people, I think you're not forcing them to buy something, but you're directing them in a way that they might spend that money more productively or constructively, definitely in a healthier manner. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you're getting this money to buy your food. There's some requirements with it. We want to make sure you're as healthy as possible. That's just my feeling on the issue. So there again are two pretty huge illustrations, two huge issues today that go to this concept of politics and how it affects your day-to-day life. And if we do go this route where the states and the school boards are going to have more say in how your kids are fed, there's no better issue for you to get involved with. All right? Taking a lot of time. We got to get to the demo and the good stuff with my online training. So before we get to the demo, I want to tie in to the discussion, to the theme of the episode, how the thinking body fits into the sledgehammer swing. I can't think of a better illustration of a movement that incorporates a lot of the concepts that I believe in and that are presented in the book, The Thinking Body. Everything's working from your fingertips to your toes. You have all 360 degrees of movement in how you have to manipulate the sledgehammer. It trains proper posture. There's a concept of, in everything we do, force meets force, and you need to be able to control and manage that force. The sledgehammer swing certainly is going to do that for us. And you don't have to be a movement expert or some kind of maniac fitness enthusiast to see the sledgehammer in action and understand how it can do a lot for you.
20 total?
Yep. 4, 6. Good. We go outside. It's lousy weather here in New Jersey. Even though the sun is out, it's cold and windy. But we're going to go out, and I'm going to show you my setup, and we'll take it from there. All right, so here we go. This is my basic setup here. Nice 6-pound sledgehammer. And this, believe it or not, is a loading dock bumper that for about $60 you could get on Amazon. Delivered to your door. Don't have the stump today. It's wet, we had rain. So I'm going to use the rubber bumper. If you have the stump, it costs you $65 less. This is about $40 depending on where you get it. It's simple. Of course, people around here look at me like I'm crazy, but what else is new? Get your heart rate up. That's 5 and 5. I typically do sets of 10, 10, 10, 10, and 10, but we'll talk about that in a little bit inside. Thanks. So as you can see, we're running out of time here, but that's good. We went quickly. I want to wrap up a little bit or just give you a little bit more info about the sledgehammer. So I incorporate that with a lot of other different traditional training. On days where I'm really pushing my heart rate, getting my heart rate up, I'll do Tabata intervals with my combat bike, with the sledgehammer, with some explosive coordination moves. Those are some things I'll talk about, and you will see when you train with me, when we train together. All of my clients here, athlete, non-athlete alike, participate and learn those, what I call explosive coordination movements that are the key, in my opinion, to better performance regardless of what your endeavor is. Open your mind to that. Like I said, it's inexpensive. The bumper on Amazon is anywhere between $50 and $65. Those many things you could get on Amazon you'd never imagine. And a sledgehammer, go down to your local hardware store or big box store, pick one up. I think the 6-pound one is around $40. I have, like I said, a 10 and a 20. If you watch the first show, you'll see that are unbelievably difficult. The 10-pounder is so hard, and the 21 is just ridiculous. The 20-pound sledgehammer is ridiculous. But again, it's worth it. So part of that dovetails nicely into what I want to talk about here. And I would love for people to join what I'm calling my revival crew. My in-house training, I do half hour, 45 minute, and hour sessions. Little history: when I first started the business and in the industry where I started to work at Plus One in Manhattan, which was the place that kind of brought what I call retail fitness, personal training as a retail fitness offering, everything was an hour, and it was brutal. I got to tell you, the hour sessions were brutal, both from the professional, from the trainer standpoint, and from the client standpoint. 30-minute and 45-minute sessions are the best. And what we're doing here for the remote training is the 30-minute sessions are $65 and the 45-minute sessions are $90. But I don't do one-offs. I don't do one and dones. That's something I learned early on, where I was desperate to get people to train with me. They'd come once and I wouldn't see them for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they'd come again, and there was never any ability for me to show how doing what I want them to do was going to make a difference. So I didn't make up this phrase, but I heard you have to make things sticky. There's my first use of air quotes on the show, so that's good. I'll limit that, trust me. But you have to make things sticky. So I sell blocks in my business. I sell 10 at a time, and people sign a contract with me to train under certain conditions, use those sessions minimum of twice per week, and so they become regulars and they see the difference that my training can make. I'm doing 5 sessions at a shot, because again, that's going to get you 2 in 2 weeks, and then hopefully by the time we get to that 5th session, you're ready to re-up and stick with me. And what I will say to you is, I have some clients that have trained with me for more than some clients, for 25 years plus. I have 3 clients that have been with me for 30 years plus, coming to me regularly every week, multiple times a week. That's the kind of business that I run. That's the kind of relationships I build with my clients. So my half-hour sessions, and what I would like to back up and say, so these packages here that I'm offering, it's going to be 5% off of the normal rate that I'm going to charge for these remote sessions for the first 10 people that sign up, because I just need to minimize the number that I get so I can manage everyone and do things the way I want. So the first 10 people that sign up for this program and for the group rate program are going to get a 5% discount. 30-minute sessions, you're going to get 5 of all of these. 35 minutes are $308.75. The 45-minute sessions are $427.50. And I didn't really talk about the hour sessions because I don't recommend them. However, if anyone wants them, you're certainly welcome. My hourly rate is $120, and that package of 5 is $570. Again, that's with the 5% discount. Group rates, where you're going to get 1 session a week of 45 minutes, 1 a week for 4 weeks. That's going to be the month. The 45-minute sessions, that's going to be $240 for the month. What we're going to do is give you the option to add 1 30-minute one-to-one session, one-on-one session to that block of 5 group sessions. That's going to be a total of $290 for that. So if you'll get the 4 once a week 45-minute sessions and 1 30-minute private one-on-one session. And that's going to be, again, to the first 10 people who sign up. That is actually a little more than a 5% discount, but the numbers just worked out. So if you're interested, you could DM me at Sal Marinello on X, and my email address is coachsalm@proton.me. You can see that right there on the screen. So that wraps up this show. I'm out. I didn't see when it ran out, so I'll do some extra squat thrusts because I took you over time. But thanks for checking in, and I look forward to hearing from you. Again, any questions whatsoever, not just with regard to training, but any questions, anything you'd like to hear me talk about, get in touch with me. Thanks.